For the sake of the sect, I confined myself to the Forbidden Land for 500 years. But now that I have returned, everything has changed. My master despises me. My senior sisters loathe me. And the new junior brother has replaced everything I once had. However, through an illusion, I saw what happens 10,000 years later. From then on, I wrote a letter of abandonment, renounced my sect, and transformed into a rogue cultivator seeking my own path. But just as I was making a triumphant advance on the celestial road, my original master and senior sisters cried, begging me to return to the sect. To this, my answer was only one sentence. Your beloved junior brother died 500 years ago. It was your choice. Heavenly Tao rhythms are a kind of heavenly law. They permeate between heaven and earth, hidden beyond the three realms. In theory, heavenly Tao rhythms are inexhaustible and never-ending. But these heavenly Tao rhythms cannot be used directly. They can only be used by making special materials into talismans, which can be relied upon in actual combat. And because there are many types of heavenly Tao rhythms, the effects of the talismans vary. If categorized, they can be roughly divided into three types: support, attack, and special. Support type includes talismans that speed up movement, such as the Swift Talisman, such as the Breath Concealment Talisman, and gather spiritual energy, such as the Gathering Talisman, which can be used to assist cultivators. The attack type includes talismans that can be used to attack enemies without mobilizing heavenly spiritual energy, such as the Thunder Summoning Talisman and Fire Dragon Talisman. The special type is more complex. This category cannot be detailed, but it includes extremely rare talismans. For example, those that increase the success rate of recognizing treasures, accelerate the growth of spiritual plants, or even arouse the warrior's bloodlust on the battlefield, making them fearless, like the Bloodless Talisman. Besides these categories, talismans also have strict grades, from 1 to 9 grades. Each grade represents a qualitative leap. Even the materials required for making different types of talismans are all different. Additionally, the requirements for talisman makers are extremely high. The primary requirement is spiritual consciousness. Ordinary talisman makers can only create up to 3rd grade talismans, but starting from the 3rd grade, they need the assistance of powerful spiritual consciousness. When it comes to the 6th grade and above, they need exclusive spiritual Tao rhythms. This is a highly complex system. With each grade increase, the effects of the talismans become stronger. This is undeniable. But this doesn't mean that higher grade talismans are the most popular. On the contrary, the most popular talismans have always been the lower grade talismans, because the higher the grade of the talisman, the more precious the materials required. The higher the requirements for the talisman maker. Although they are powerful, they are not something ordinary people are willing to use. For most cultivators, cost-effective low-grade talismans, if used properly, can actually be more practical. Gushu's goal is to earn spiritual stones and resources, so he didn't bother with making high-grade talismans. He even ignored 2nd and 3rd grade talismans. He made only 1st grade talismans, which are the easiest to sell, because they are not expensive. Even the more financially constrained rogue cultivators can afford them. And most importantly, they take the least time to make. With the support of the Heavenly Book talismans, Guzu worked like a relentless overseer, mass-producing 1st grade talismans, 300 talismans per batch. It took only 1 hour to produce 8,000 talismans. What's even more terrifying is that after making 8,000 talismans, Guzu was only slightly tired. Although only talismans of 3rd grade and above have very high requirements for spiritual consciousness. But this doesn't mean that low-grade talismans do not consume spiritual energy. 8,000 talismans, even if a talisman master like Chin Murin were to make them, would cause enormous consumption. Not to mention she would need a lot of time. However, Guzu did not feel complacent about his rapid talisman making. Instead, he frowned. Is there such a big commotion when I make talismans? It wasn't until now that he realized that he had caused a great stir. It wasn't until now that he realized that he had caused a myriad of Tao rhythms to worship. The first time he caused a myriad of Tao rhythms to worship, Guzu was comprehending the heavenly book talisman. The second time he caused a myriad of Tao rhythms to worship, Guzu was fully focused on making talismans and hadn't noticed that there was such a big commotion outside. Withdraw! Without hesitation, Guzu shouted lowly, and instantly the worshipping heavenly Tao rhythms vanished completely. For some reason, Guzu could even feel that these active heavenly Tao rhythms seemed a bit reluctant to leave. It is said that those recognized by the heavenly Tao rhythms theoretically could receive their worship. The heavenly book talisman is powerful, but it shouldn't be able to cause such a great worship. How did this happen? Guzu murmured to himself, feeling a bit puzzled, but thinking too much about this issue is useless. Moreover, Guzu was now more concerned about something else. Let me try out the effect of my talisman. Murmuring to himself, Guzu picked up a gathering talisman. This talisman is used for consumption during closed-door cultivation. Its function is, as its name suggests, to quickly gather spiritual energy, enhancing the cultivation effect. Its effect is the same as a gathering formation, but its consumption is less than that of the gathering formation. Moreover, its effect is not weak. The main thing is that this talisman can be stacked with the gathering formation to enhance the effect. Without hesitation, Guzu activated the gathering talisman in his hand. The first-grade gathering talisman immediately ignited and burned in midair. Instantly, a massive amount of spiritual energy surged towards Guzu. In front of Guzu, a faint spiritual energy vortex formed, rapidly absorbing the already enhanced spiritual energy from the gathering formation. This scene made Guzu's eyelids twitch slightly. The airflow swirled. The spiritual energy vortex formed. This shouldn't be an effect of at least a second-grade gathering talisman. He picked up another gathering talisman and examined it closely. Guzu was certain that this was indeed a first-grade gathering talisman. Whether it was the materials or the talisman structure, it was completely a first-grade gathering talisman. If there was anything unusual, it was only the inscription on the talisman paper, which was extremely lively and graceful, seamlessly integrated. After all, these talismans weren't hand-drawn by Guzu, but were inscribed by the heavenly Tao rhythms themselves. They weren't something that an ordinary person could easily replicate. I've heard that when talisman makers create talismans, they can enter a state similar to enlightenment. Entering this state, the talisman maker might cross realms or even summon the gods. The talismans created in this state have effects that surpass their current grade. Such talismans can be called Tao talismans. So, could my talismans be considered perfect Tao talismans? Guzu tested to other talismans. As expected, all the talismans he made reached the level of Tao talismans. Not only were they Tao talismans, but their power was actually a step above ordinary Tao talismans. Perfect Tao talismans are no joke. This discovery made Guzu's eyes shine brightly. His purpose for making talismans had always been to earn spiritual stones. Now, with the perfect Tao talismans, to earn cultivation resources, his talisman making speed already surpassed all talisman makers. Now, each talisman was comparable to a perfect Tao talisman. However, amidst his joy, Guzu couldn't help but frown again. His talisman-making skill was so strong that as long as he had enough materials, he could guarantee both quality and quantity, making every talisman perfect. But the scene of myriad Tao rhythms worshipping was too spectacular. Guzu knew without a doubt that such a commotion would attract a lot of attention from other talisman makers. If he suddenly produced a large quantity of perfect Tao talismans, it might draw too much attention. This was not what Guzu wanted. He was a rogue cultivator with the awareness that comes with it. Previously, he had showcased his value in front of Surime to ensure mutual benefits on relatively equal terms. But if his value was too extraordinary, it could backfire. So many talismans. He couldn't just let them rot in his hands to stay low-key. If it really didn't work, he would sell them in batches. If that still didn't work, he would leave Yangshao City quickly after seizing the opportunity there. After thinking it over, Guzu made his decision. The name of myriad Tao rhythms worshipping was too prominent. He didn't want to carry that title, but he couldn't not sell the talismans and live frugally, which wasn't what Guzu wanted either. So he had to sell them, just while keeping a low profile, and avoid linking himself to the myriad Tao rhythms worshipping event. Thinking about these uselessly, he decided to focus on what the green bamboo pole would bring him this time. Shaking his head, Guzu refocused and took out the green bamboo pole. Since the last time the green bamboo pole fished out the 7 stars pendant, 10 more days have passed. Compared to earning spiritual stones by selling talismans, the green bamboo pole's ability to fish through the heavens is evidently more important. Stroking the spiritual threads on the green bamboo pole, Guzu did not hesitate and cast the pole immediately. Almost at the moment the green bamboo pole was used, there was a tug at the other end. So quick! Guzu was somewhat puzzled. The last time, the 7 stars pendant was fished out very quickly. This time, it seemed even faster. More importantly, this time Guzu could even feel as if the object at the other end was eager to be caught by him. This time, could it be another opportunity from Zhongzhen? With this thought in mind, Guzu pulled upwards. When he saw the object clearly, Guzu's expression became astonished. At this moment, what appeared on Guzu's green bamboo pole was an extremely unique mask. It was entirely like white jade, shaped like a Rakshasa demon, yet also resembling a Buddhist vira. There were flickering lights on it, dreamlike and illusory, seemingly real yet unreal. Guzu held it in his hand, immediately feeling it was as thin as a cicada's wing, light as if it were nothing. There was a faint supreme Tao rhythm flowing on it, with a sense of Zen nurtured within. This is the 3-life mask. It really is Zhongzhen's opportunity. Guzu was slightly stunned. For a moment, he was somewhat surprised. This mask is called the 3-life mask. It carries the Zen rhythm of Buddhism. Its origin is related to Buddhism. Most importantly, this item has a special ability. Buddhist 3 bodies. The so-called Buddhist 3 bodies is a concept in Buddhism. They believe that Buddha has 3 bodies, divided into the Dharma body, the reward body, and the transformation body. As the Buddhist scriptures say, the pure Dharma body is your nature, the perfect reward body is your wisdom, the billions of transformation bodies are your actions, and this mask of 3 lives possesses the ability of these 3 bodies. At this moment, Guzu put on the mask of 3 lives, and his entire image and temperament changed instantly. His figure grew taller by a few inches. His white hair remained unchanged, but his facial features and demeanor changed drastically. His entire face changed, becoming an unreal illusion, perfect to the point of being too unreal. More importantly, his supreme Tao bone and innate Tao rhythm were now fully exposed, surrounded by infinite Tao rhythms. Just a glance made one feel his brilliance. At this moment, he seemed born for the Dharma. Every gesture and motion carried the Tao rhythm, as if he could create laws with a wave of his hand. Guzu slightly concentrated his spiritual power to test it, and found that the originally smooth spiritual energy became even more fluent at this moment. Even simple moves became more powerful than before. This is the Dharma body. The mind encompasses the great void, embracing the worlds like grains of sand. Then Guzu's face changed again, from the previous flawless appearance to a plain one. His figure became shorter, and his white hair turned into black. He had no striking features at all, like a speck of dust in the grand Tao. Unremarkable, not unique. Even the supreme Tao bone and innate holy rhythm, which he usually had to conceal with all his might, no longer needed to be hidden. They seemed to have completely vanished. This is the transformation body. After a moment, Guzu returned to his original self. The mask seemed to disappear, as if nothing had changed. But his cultivation aura vanished entirely at this moment. He seemed like an ordinary mortal. Even the most advanced cultivators could not detect him. This is also one of the three bodies. The reward body. The so-called reward body is the body that accepts the karmic fruits, the original self in the world. But the original self is not truly oneself until Guzu removed the mask, and everything returned to normal. He remained as he was before, but his gaze at the three-life mask was filled with astonishment. This three-life mask seemed to have functions similar to the false face talisman or face-changing treasures, but in reality, it was entirely different. Because whether talisman or treasure, they ultimately just changed appearances. But the three-life mask was different. This was the true Buddhist three bodies. All three bodies were false, yet all three bodies were true. They could not be seen through, could not be exposed, because they were all the original self. No matter what heavenly secrets or hidden realms, even the supreme beings of the Great Ascension could not see through them. This Buddhist treasure is very powerful, but Guzu couldn't help but frown slightly. Something felt off, not only because this item belonged to Zhongzhen's opportunity in that 10,000-year dream, but more importantly, just now he was worried about how to sell these talismans discreetly without attracting attention as a rogue cultivator. And now he had suddenly obtained the three-life mask. This seemed a bit too coincidental. Guzu murmured to himself, feeling a bit puzzled, shaking his head. Unable to figure it out, Guzu decided to stop thinking about it. He took out a gathering talisman and used it, then sat cross-legged and closed his eyes, continuing his cultivation. While Guzu continued his intense cultivation, elsewhere, in an ancient temple somewhere in the Tianqi mountain range, a group of disciples from the Qingshuan Holy Land, skilled in formations, were working hard to break the temple's restrictions. Around the ancient temple, numerous nameless corpses were scattered everywhere. There were also a few people covered in wounds, watching the Qingshuan Holy Land formation masters with hidden resentment and hatred in their eyes. But they hid it well, fearing for their lives. 2 days ago, someone approached this ancient temple, thinking it was just an abandoned old temple. But upon closer inspection, they found the temple was filled with Buddhist light, and the power of its restrictions was extraordinarily fierce. Countless people speculated that there was a great opportunity inside. But unfortunately, the first group who discovered it tried every method but couldn't break the formation outside the temple. After long deliberation, they had to ask for help. But they never expected that asking for help would be the beginning of their nightmare. No one knows who leaked the news, but the information about the hidden Buddhist opportunity in the Tianqi mountain range spread in just half a day. In no time, a large number of cultivators gathered there. Initially, after some scheming negotiations, a group of people agreed to first break the restriction together and see what was inside, then decide on the ownership. But no one expected the Qingshuan Holy Land to arrive. When such a prestigious holy land takes action, it has nothing to do with these people. At that time, some who were unwilling to accept this tried to reason, but they ended up as piles of white bones in front of the opportunity. When the crowd looked at the young man in green, their faces were filled with fear. This person was Zhongzhen, the holy son of Qingshuan. Though his cultivation was only at the foundation establishment stage, his strength was extraordinary. Those at the peak of foundation establishment were like weaklings before him. Even those in the early golden core stage could fight him. He was a true prodigy. What was even more terrifying was that this time, he was accompanied by a supreme being from the Qingshuan Holy Land. It was simply overwhelming. Zhongzhen, with a humble expression, said to Guan Zulan, "Thank you, Master, for bringing me here. If it weren't for your presence, I'm afraid I wouldn't have been able to obtain this opportunity. You are my disciple. Guan Zulin replied. I must protect you. I won't interfere if it's an enemy of the same level. But if someone wants to bully you with their higher cultivation, how could I stand by and watch my disciple be humiliated? Guan Zulin smiled slightly, almost as if protective was written on his face. Zhongzhen was extremely grateful, thanking him repeatedly. A few severely injured cultivators nearby sighed inwardly, but could only accept their bad luck. There was nothing they could do. After all, he had an immensely powerful background, and a sect that cared for him deeply. At this moment, a booming sound came from the ancient temple, accompanied by the exclamations of the Qingshuan Holy Land disciples. The ancient temple's restriction unexpectedly backfired. Even golden core cultivators were severely injured. Fortunately, Guan Zulin was present. With a flip of her palm, she protected several Qingshuan Holy Land disciples. Although they were injured, their lives were spared. Sect Master. This ancient temple not only has dangerous formations, but also profound Buddhist power. With our skills, we cannot break the restrictions here. These are clearly Buddhist restrictions, yet they are extraordinarily bizarre. We cannot break them. We might need the help of fourth or fifth martial uncle to solve this. Even if we do break it, it won't matter. The defensive power of this ancient temple is incredibly strong, seemingly possessing the power of Buddhist karma. It might require a supreme being of the Great Ascension stage to break it. We hope the sect master will take action. Several Qingshuan Holy Land disciples who had survived the ordeal said. Guan Zulin frowned, not expecting this ancient temple, which had existed for an unknown number of years, to be so powerful. However, since she was here, she wouldn't just stand by. Guan Zulin looked at the ancient temple with a furrowed brow, then extended her finger. A powerful Great Ascension stage finger attack collided with the terrifying Buddhist light in the temple. In an instant, a dazzling light erupted, making it hard for anyone to look directly at it. When everyone's vision cleared, they saw that the terrifying restriction of the ancient temple had disappeared. As for Guan Zulin, she stood with her right hand behind her back, her fingers hidden within her sleeve out of sight, her expression calm and composed. This made the severely injured cultivators gasp in shock, exclaiming that the Great Ascension Stage Supreme Being was indeed incredibly powerful. At the same time, they realized that this opportunity, even if it were handed over to them, they still wouldn't have the ability to break through this ancient temple's restriction. No one knows what is inside. It is a restriction that only a Supreme Being can break. This is no ordinary place. The Buddhist sect rarely operates in the eastern wilderness. It's unknown when this ancient temple was constructed, but such a hidden concealment, such a terrifying restriction, what lies within it, must truly be extraordinary. It's a pity. Such an opportunity is beyond our reach. The cultivators lamented repeatedly, but could only accept their fate. In the world of cultivation, strength is revered above all else. Now that even a supreme being of the Great Ascension stage has intervened, this opportunity is indeed unrelated to them. Surviving is already considered exceptional luck. In contrast to their regret and disappointment, the people from the Qingshuan Sacred Land were all extremely excited. The restriction of the ancient temple had been broken. Everyone hesitated no longer and immediately rushed in, eager to see first what treasures were hidden inside. Zhongzhen's face was especially flushed with excitement. This opportunity was destined for him. Although he had lost a heavenly grade sword recently, if he could obtain this treasure, it wouldn't be too bad. But just as the smile on his face was beginning to bloom, a group of Qingshuan sect disciples who had entered the ancient temple came out one by one, each with a gloomy expression. Pa! Aside from a bald corpse, there were only a few broken Buddhist scriptures. There was nothing else. Zhongzhen's smile immediately froze. What? Just a corpse and a few scriptures? The words of the Qingshuan Sacred Land disciple left everyone outside the ancient temple in astonishment. How could this be possible? The ancient temple was concealed so carefully. And the restriction was immensely powerful. Even there was a Buddhist power blocking the way. So many measures were used. It should have been hiding a supreme treasure, right? Yet there's nothing at all. Even Guanzulin furrowed her brow slightly at this moment. Did you search thoroughly? Reporting to the sect master, we searched absolutely thoroughly. This ancient temple is not large. There isn't even a single statue of Buddha inside. Aside from a few Buddhist scriptures and the bald corpse, there's nothing else. Even those scriptures are merely mundane items. They are very old, and as soon as I touched them, they crumbled into dust instantly. Several Qingchuan sacred land disciples answered one after another. Their expressions were filled with calmness. Clearly, they weren't lying. But the more they remained calm, the more restless Zhongzun became. This is impossible. There's absolutely no way there's nothing inside. The others were puzzled, but Zhongzun had already taken the lead and rushed inside. Guanzulin frowned slightly, but still followed Zhongzun, and in an instant, she appeared inside the ancient temple, looking around. It was indeed just as the previous disciples had said. This ancient temple, though it appeared impressive from the outside, was actually empty inside. Even the Buddha statues that should have been there were missing. Instead, there was a bald monk, sitting cross-legged with his eyes closed. This person must have had considerable strength in life, and his vitality must have been long extinct. Yet his body remained intact. Aside from this corpse, there were also some fragments scattered nearby. Clearly the issue the Qingchuan sacred land disciples had seen earlier. This is impossible. The guidance couldn't have been wrong. There must be a supreme treasure inside. What is going on? Where did things go wrong? Damn it! Meanwhile, Zhongzun beside her was muttering softly, his gaze continuously searching within the ancient temple, even rummaging through the corpse of the high monk. In his eyes, there was a hint of bitterness. However, Guanzulin only felt a pang of heartache upon seeing this. Since the destruction of that heavenly grade sword last time, her beloved young disciple had been somewhat sullen. So, when he asked her to come out and help this time, Guanzulin had agreed without hesitation. She had thought there would be opportunities here. But now it seems it's all this bald monk's fault for making my disciple so distressed. Guanzulin suddenly turned her head, her eyes filled with a trace of resentment as she looked at the monk's corpse. She raised her right hand and struck towards the monk's corpse. This time, Guanzulin used considerable strength, because when she had broken the restriction earlier, a peculiar force had attached itself. The force was weak, and she had temporarily suppressed it. She feared there was something strange about the monk's corpse, so she didn't hold back. To Guanzulin's surprise, the anticipated resistance didn't occur. With this strike, the monk's corpse disintegrated into ashes, as if it were made of paper. The bald monk had exhausted all his strength in repelling the external enemies of the ancient temple. His physical power long since depleted. Guanzulin immediately guessed the outcome. But then she was puzzled. Did this bald monk go mad, expending so much effort to guard nothing? Just as she was thinking, her fingers suddenly throbbed with pain. The strange force wrapped around her once again. Guanzulin's eyes flashed with cold light. She no longer hesitated, summoned her full strength of the Great Ascension, and obliterated the peculiar force. But just as that force was completely eradicated, a majestic hall in the western desert suddenly began to tremble violently.